the podcast with Dan Bardell and Gregg Evans.
And welcome to 1874, the podcast in association with NordVPN. If you want to grab your exclusive NordVPN deal, you can do so by heading to 1874.io/NordVPN. And if you do that, you'll get a huge discount off the plan and you'll also get 4 months free. It's completely risk-free because Nord give you a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you think NordVPN can help you out, look at the little description underneath the video and you can utilise it. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by the Athletics' Gregg Evans to discuss Villa's title charge as Aston Villa go to Brentford, a really bogey team they've been over the years, and they win 2-1 with a gritty display. Gregg, you were actually at Liverpool v Manchester United yesterday, which was a little bit of a snooze fest in some ways. The better game was at Brentford, and Villa came through it. And in years gone by, as I said, Brentford games have been a struggle for Villa. Also, in years gone by, Villa had beat Man City and Arsenal. You kind of feel like they might slip up in this game, but they didn't. And they're riding high in the Premier League.
Yeah, the title challenge, as I predicted last week, he's firmly on track now, isn't he? It's all looking good. Look, first and foremost, apologies for the croaky voice. I got a bit of a cold. I had it for the last couple of days, so hopefully not too many coughs and sneezes during this podcast. But no, look, everything going smoothly for Villa. Just what they needed really to back up the brilliant performances and victories against Arsenal and Manchester City. They needed that to carry on the momentum, don't they? And it's a really unusual situation for Villa and supporters because they're not used to sort of having to go and win every game, but that's what you have to keep doing really for long periods of the season to keep up, a title challenge. And look, for as long as it continues, and I still think that Villa are firmly in there, and I've said that for a couple of weeks now. It's what they just have to keep doing, just have to keep winning games, and it doesn't really matter how they do it as long as they win the games.
Villa are almost becoming a scalp now, aren't they? Like teams will start wanting to beat Villa because it's a bit unprecedented what they're doing. Okay, Newcastle had a brilliant season last year, and obviously there was the Leicester season when they won the league. But as underdogs, really, Villa are keeping the pace. So as time goes on, teams will want to beat Villa more.
Yeah, 100%, and it's what we've seen with Brentford yesterday. They changed it up slightly, went a bit more defensive, played a very tight and compact formation. There wasn't much distance really between the defence and the midfield. It was almost like a block of seven or eight almost at times, wasn't it? And I think that's what Villa are going to see more often now, and it's how they react to that, how they find ways to pick the opponents apart. And look, okay, the sending off changed the game and made it a lot more easier for Villa, and that's ultimately how they went and won the game. But there are plenty of other teams around them that have benefited from playing against 10 men this season and gone on to win in a similar way. So look, you take each game as it comes. God, that's so cliche, isn't it? Take each game as it comes. I'm sounding like Unai Emery because do you know what's frustrating me a little bit about Emery is that he's just not getting. He doesn't seem like he's enjoying it yet. He's not getting too carried away with it.
I'm sure he is, dude.
I'm sure privately he is, but I just want him to be more honest and open when he comes out and speaks and say, look, we're in this. Let's ride with it, because it's very rare, that it happens. And I think the players are a little bit more open, aren't they? Certainly, when we speak to John McGinn, he tries to play it down a little bit, but he's more open and honest, and believes that they're in the race as long as they're there. So let's roll with that. But yeah, look, Villa got the job done. It was difficult, I think, the first half. I thought, Brentford were very well organised. And look, when they went ahead, I always think Villa can find a way now, but I was starting to run out of a little bit of faith, and I was thinking this one might escape them, and that would have been a big blow because they needed the momentum to take into the Christmas period.
It was a really, really hard game. You're right about Brentford defending in numbers. I felt in the first half in particular, it was the kind of game where Villa missed a player with a little bit of craft further forward. So maybe like Emi Buendia, I remember him getting the assist at Brentford last year for Douglas Luiz. They kind of missed that number 10 creative player, I felt, to try and break Brentford down, because what they were trying in the first half in the main and up until the sending off, really, what wasn't working, it was really, really tough out there for Villa. And Brentford have got a lot of players missing at the moment. I think it was a case of needs must, really, with the way they defended, and they did defend really, really diligently. Got their goal. It was a disappointing goal again, because it feels like that's a goal that Villa have conceded a little bit too often away from home now. I can think of 3 examples where they've kind of conceded from the breakdown of a corner and not cleared their line. So that was disappointing, because that seems to be a pattern that's emerging at the moment. Villa had players missing themselves as well. Big players, obviously, Dougie Luiz, and then Tielemans, who probably would have played in his position, was missing as well. So McGinn had to come inside, and I felt Villa lacked McGinn actually out wide.
Bailey not starting as well.
Yeah, Bailey wasn't fit enough to start. So Villa had problems of their own as well. Ramsey and Moreno perhaps a little bit rusty. It's good to see them get some substantial minutes, because they'll be big players for Villa as the season goes on. So it was 2 teams with a little bit of a problem. But like you say, you do kind of always think Villa might find a way, but there's no doubt that sending off changed the game. And I find Thomas Frank's comments after the game absolutely bizarre. I wish sometimes managers would just be realistic and a little bit honest, because it's a red card every day of the week. It's out of control. It's high. Both his feet are off the floor. I cannot understand for the life of me what Thomas Frank is complaining about there.
No, I was a little bit surprised actually by Frank.
I like Thomas Frank as well.
He's a manager who I like. I rate very highly. Very, very good manager. Certainly in the top half of managers in the Premier League. A decent guy as well. There aren't too many sort of that are open and frank about.
You really are cliche today, aren't you? What's happened to you?
But yeah, it was surprising. It was surprising because you look at the challenge. But look, Villa fans don't like Benma. Let's be honest, because of the situation previously when he was at Burnley and the injury that he caused to Wesley. But he's not a malicious player. He doesn't go out to hurt opponents. He's actually a thoroughly good guy.
If you listen to him speak, he talks a good game as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's done a lot of work with the Athletic. My big bosses speak very highly of him. And look, a good guy overall, but it was a bad challenge. It was a clear sending off, and look, it was a really dangerous one actually. It could have seriously injured Bailey, and at a time where Bailey is playing extremely well and in a really good moment for Villa, that could have been really damaging. But just look, the challenge alone, he'll know himself that it was a sending off. Surely, looking back on it, and look, I think I presume Frank was just a bit frustrated because of the manner of the defeat. Brentford were very much in control. Felt that they had got the goal and were going to go and see it out. They had a couple of penalty shouts. The Konza one on Morpie was the one that I thought perhaps might have been given, if any of the two were. So I think it was a combination of everything. He was just a bit frustrated, but surely he knows that is a bad challenge and warranted a red card.
I did feel the ref struggled overall across the whole game. I think he's actually missed something like 7 or 8 Premier League games. I think he got demoted for a little bit. He's come back into that game, and I just never felt he had control. I've got to say, I'm full of admiration for Brentford, full of respect for them. I've always liked them as a club. I used to live around there. I think they're a brilliant club, and what they've done is so unique, and I love the way they go about things. I watch a lot of football, and there's no bias here whatsoever. I've got to say they were the dirtiest team I've seen this season. So many fouls. McGinn was lucky not to get hurt with another challenge in the middle of the park on another day. I think that possibly was a red card. Again, I think most of this will be because they're missing players, so they're having to kind of play in a different way. But I did think overall Brentford crossed the line yesterday on a few occasions.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you on that. But I think it stems back to what we were saying at the start of the conversation. Teams are looking at ways to get the better of Villa now, and sometimes they might have to go for the dark arts. They might have to put it on Villa a little bit more. You can imagine almost the players saying, "Look, who are these guys that think they're flying high at the top of the league? They're coming to our backyard. We've got to put it on them." Perhaps those conversations took place before the game. And sometimes that's a way to rattle teams, and there haven't been many opponents that have found a way to rattle Villa this year. So teams are going to have to be different and creative, in a certain way. But yeah, look, obviously, certain challenges can't happen because it's going to cause problems. It's going to cause injuries potentially as well.
Yeah, Villa got back in the game when Brentford had obviously gone down to 10 men. A nice cross from Bale and Alex Moreno, kind of taking advantage of the fact that Villa had a spare man at the back post and heading it home. It's great to have him back, isn't it? Because I thought he looked rusty at times, and in the end he was running on complete fumes, Moreno. But he's something different to Luca Dean. I don't think Moreno automatically comes back in the side, because I actually think Luca Dean's been really good over the last 2 months. But it's nice now that they've got two options at left back, and they've got kind of two different types of player. Moreno was, in the first half, all Villa's chances fell to Moreno as well. He was a real threat, and like I say, it's just nice to have two high quality left backs on good form up against each other now. And you may even see Moreno play further forward in certain games as well.
Yeah. Look, they're different players, aren't they? But it's good that they're varied, because it brings different options, and it will give the manager the opportunity to play in a certain way against certain opponents. One game might work better for Moreno starting, another Luca Dean. I think what we see with Luca Dean is obviously his delivery is much better. With Moreno, he gets around the back post a lot. That's how he got his goal. There were a couple of other occasions that he was in that position and got into really good, dangerous areas. He loves to get to the byline, doesn't he? And kind of chop in from there. I really like his story. He's not a young lad, although he does look relatively young.
He's a very, very handsome boy. I mean,
good-looking guy. Good-looking guy. Yeah, not
boy
envious at all. Not envious at all. The only thing we've got over him is we're a bit taller, so
yeah,
that's all we can. That's all we can say. But no, look, when he came to the club, he was the one signing in the last January transfer window that Unai Emery was given. Villa sanctioned the deal because they thought it was a good value deal, wasn't too much, and they wanted to give Unai Emery a player that he actually specifically wanted. So he'd obviously watched Moreno light it up for Real Betis for a good couple of years. But there was a lot of changes that he needed to make to his game. So when Moreno first came to the club, he was actually given like a reel of clips that he had to go home and study. And how he had to position his body, and the way he positioned himself in the team had to be changed a little bit, just so he got used to playing the new Villa way, or the way that Emery wants to play. So, it took him a little bit of time, really. And as well, another guy that come in that couldn't really speak much English. Did an interview with him last year, and it was all in Spanish. So he needed to get used to the new surroundings. Hadn't been to England before. I think he came over with his partner, but that just stems back to everything that he's good at the club. There's lots of really high level departments at the club that will help players settle in now, and perhaps haven't been able to in previous years. So yeah, look, good to have him back. I think he was a little bit, what's the word, downbeat during his injury, because he was playing well, wasn't he? He was in good form,
really
and
well.
He felt like he needed that to continue the momentum taking into the next season. But had a period on the sidelines, and he's back now and contributing.
Yeah, frustrating as well when you get back and then you have another kind of a reoccurrence. That is in a way what happened with Ramsey and Moreno. They got themselves back, and then they both went out injured again for a month or so. But it's brilliant to have both of them back. I actually think in Ramsey and Moreno's absence, Villa have kind of stumbled upon two different combinations down that left-hand side, because Ramsey and Moreno were brilliant together at the end of last season. We scored a lot of goals from Moreno, cutbacks as well for Luiz on the left-hand side of central midfield, or Ramsey on the left. I'd say Luca Dean is more stand and deliver fullback that'll get wide and whipping across, whereas Moreno relies a little bit more on cutbacks. But in that absence, we've had McGinn and Luca Dean down that side as well, which has worked as a good combination. So in that absence, Villa kind of have two different duos down that side now, which I find
Good
quite
options,
interesting. And again, that gives you different ways of playing, doesn't it?
Amazing options, genuinely really, really good options to have, and that both of them are gonna work for Villa. I was thinking about it last night. Villa are now at the stage where they can almost afford to have a luxury player, or a player that has sort of luxury traits, because of how well organised they are, because of how well disciplined the rest of the squad team is, and because of how much each player knows his role and responsibility and goes out and executes it every week. So if you think back to a couple of years ago, we'd probably be looking at Villa and thinking, Moreno, not great defensively, likes to get forward a lot. Luca Dean, again, probably not the best defensively, but we know his qualities are in the attacking areas. But Villa are a top 4, top 5, top 6 team now, however you want to describe them. that they can have players like that. Like João Cancelo used to be at Man City, for example, or Hector Bellerin at Arsenal. Loads of examples, but Villa are now in that sort of moment where they can have a luxury player or two because the rest of the team is so good.
And you just probably described Leon Bailey as a luxury player early on in the season. I think got 5 goals and 5 assists now in the Premier League without having started many games. So his goals and assists per minute ratio is up there as towards the best in the Premier League, and probably not fully fit yesterday. He's just a clutch player now, isn't he? Dynamic winger that we thought we'd signed a few years ago. It's taken him a while to get going, but he's absolutely brilliant at the moment. And probably if you pick Villa's best 11 now when everyone's fit, you probably have to have Leon Bailey in it, don't you? And on the opposite end of that spectrum, I know they're not playing in the same role because Diaby plays up top, but Diaby's almost, I feel like, as Bailey's confidence has shot up, Diaby's has come down a little bit, I think.
Feels that way, doesn't it, with Diaby? He's dropped off a little, but I think if you look at a lot of the players that have come into the Premier League this season, a fair few of them started quite well and have dipped off a little bit. And I suppose that's always natural, Sometimes it can be the other way.
I think Shopper's lied done that at Liverpool as
well.
Yeah,
he was the main example I was thinking of, to be honest. Yeah. Szoboszlai and Gravenberch at Liverpool are a couple of examples, but with Diaby, I was really, really impressed with him. I remember that first game at Newcastle. I thought, wow, Villa have really got a player here. But and he took that into the next few weeks and months, but just slightly dropped off a little bit. Maybe he just needs a little bit of a rest, taking out the team, and we'll come back in the new year firing. The good thing for Villa is that they're not missing him because of what Bailey's doing. And yeah, again, without sounding like a broken record for those who listen every week, we wrote Bailey off, didn't we? But we can safely say now that he's an important part of this team who turns up in the big moments. Lovely cross yesterday, lovely goal against Man City. There were some concerns, higher up at Villa about his attitude and about his, certainly about his performances in the first couple of seasons at the club. But they stuck with him because they knew what he'd done, Germany and in Germany for Leverkusen, and they were confident that they could get that out of him. But it's just another sign, really, of what Emery's done, improving another player who's clearly got it in there.
Yeah,
and you look at a lot of these Villa players, they were signed for big money. There's a lot of. It's not a massive shock that Villa are high up in the table because it's a really expensively assembled squad now. Every player, other than the few of the midfielders, have come for big money. They were signed because they had quality already. It was just extracting it out of them.
From there. I feel like John McGinn it feels like, and from stuff I've heard as well, has taken on a bit of not a big brother role. I can't think of another way to describe it, but a bit more of a mentor role with Leon Bailey, kind of taking him under his wing. You see them interact on social media. They seem like they've gotten quite close. And I've got to say, McGinn's leadership overall now is really, really impressing me. We'll come on to the sending off, but you can just, by his reaction to Kamara's sending off as well, we'll come on to the sending off, as I've said. But McGinn seems to be just galvanising those around him. Not only an exceptional player and on the form of his life, but also just a brilliant captain now for Villa. I was critical of him being made captain when he wasn't. I don't think that was right at the time. But the heartbeat of the side now, and I don't know whether you've seen it, there's a lovely Premier League documentary on YouTube about John McGinn. It's about 25, 30 minutes long. Premier League stories, well worth a watching to his upbringing and how he became a footballer. But I feel like McGinn has helped with Bailey as well, from what I hear.
Yeah, I think McGinn's a leading light in this team. I went to Scotland last year and went to his hometown. Spent some time talking to people that helped nurture him in his earlier years. He's obviously from a family of brothers who also play, and the mum and dad are very, very sort of grounded and go to all the different brothers' games. And it's not just a case of let's go to Villa every week. They still go to it was Falkirk last year. I think Stephen's still there, and Motherwell for I forgot his name. I forgot his other brother's name. Paul McGinn.
I should know because I watched a documentary yesterday and they were both in it.
Oh, were they mentioned? Yeah. No, I haven't had a chance to read that, to watch that documentary. As I say, I did a similar sort of version of my own.
It was very much like your article, to be honest.
Maybe they read through it. But yeah, look, we love the McGinn story, don't we? I think that he's a good mixture now of performance and vocal leader. He can really rally the troops if he needs to. He can calm players down if he needs to, or at least try to. He did that yesterday with, furious with Kamara, wasn't he? With the reaction, and there was just no real need for that. And again, I was watching, thinking with Martinez as well. I was just like, he felt just a little bit loose yesterday, Martinez, and I was concerned that he was going to lose his cool and potentially get sent off. And that's literally the last thing Villa need, because there are only a couple of players, I think, in that Villa team that are irreplaceable, and he's one of them. With no Olsen at the moment.
Do we know what's going on with Olsen?
I don't know, but we'll try and find out. But it's Philip Marshall on the bench now, and he's it's a lovely story of his as well. I shared an article that I wrote in The Athletic last year about Marshall when he made his debut in Bosnia last week. It was only 7 years ago, when he was 13 years old, that he was an outfield player, and now he's making his debut for Villa. The senior team as a 20-year-old as a goalkeeper. It's incredible. But with all due respect to Philip Marshall, Villa, on a title charge, do not want to see him in goal or put the pressure on him in goal in real big games in the Premier League. So, yeah, I hope Martinez starts to keep his cool a little bit more, because he's going to be huge for Villa.
I'd suggest we don't really want to see Olsen in goal.
Well, I mean, look, to be honest, look, you just don't want to lose Martinez, do you? Because he's irreplaceable. Yeah, I think him, McGinn, and Watkins are the ones that, if either of those three are ever out, Villa are going to be very different, I think.
I would say Luiz is Villa's best outfielder as well. So, you're not even putting him in there, which they kind of have got a replacement for him if he's not there. You're right, definitely on Watkins and Martinez. There's no replacement of similar quality to come in for them. They'd be huge losses. We will come back to the red card, but let's talk about the Ollie Watkins goal. Lovely little flick from Kamara. Actually, Ramsey was taking the set pieces yesterday, wasn't he? Because we had players missing who were all our dead ball specialists. Ramsey put one in, and Kamara with a lovely little flick, and Watkins heads it home and then has a little bit of a to-do with a Brentford fan. I agree with what Watkins did. I actually... probably didn't go about it the right way, but when Eric Dyer climbed into the crowd, I actually understood that as well, because people go to football matches and think they can shout and say whatever they want to people who are human beings. They just happen to be footballers, and I've always found that mentality completely bizarre and weird. Even sometimes you hear what people say about your own players in the crowd. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand it at all. So I think Ollie Watkins has got every right to celebrate in that manner. I mean, Richard Keys is an absolute knob, saying it was inciting violence. It wasn't at all. Yeah, he's attention seeker, isn't he? He hasn't had any attention for a while, Richard Keys. So he's looking for some publicity for himself. But I think Watkins has got every right to react in that manner if someone's shouting abuse at you all game. And if you can hear it, it's obviously very, very vocal abuse.
Yes, he's well within his right. He didn't do anything for me. He just stood there and said, "I've just scored." What are you going to say now? Effectively,
Shut up, yeah.
He just stood up to the bully. That's literally all it was. Fair play to him. Footballers who get abused, I think some of them take it better than others. It must be difficult. I presume it would take some getting used to. But if it's one person, which is what it was with Watkins, one person constantly going on at you, the first thing you're going to think of if you're in that end and you score is to go up to him and say, "Look, look
right in front of him as well."
Yeah, so look, it was a perfect scenario, really, and I think he handled himself really well. I like the fact that he come out after and spoke about it and said, "Look, he didn't shy away from it. Just said, this is why I did it. I'd do it again." And fair play to him. Yeah, if people are going to give him stick, then give it back in a respectful way.
Yeah, and to give Thomas Frank credit, I think he kind of came out and understood it at the end of the day. When he was asked about that, Thomas Frank, he explained Ollie Watkins is a good guy, and that's the thing as well. Ollie Watkins is quite a placid guy. There is some footballers that go out their way to shush the crowd and do things like that. That just
Watkins isn't like that. Watkins is very. He's a little bit shy and unassuming almost. He doesn't fully believe in how good he is, which is a shame because he's brilliant. And if he believed in himself a little bit more, he could be even better. But that was something Dean Smith used to always say. Who signed him twice, so he knew him very well. Said that he just needs to believe in himself a little bit more. You can see that confidence now is there because the goals and the statistics show and highlight how good he is. But look, he respects Brentford. He respects the fans. He likes going back there. It was a big part of his career. He knows that Brentford gave him the platform to kick on to become a Villa and Premier League and an international player. So that would have been a bit disappointing for him. But and just to go back onto the goal, it was another one out of the Austin McPhee set piece playbook, wasn't it?
Do you reckon that was one of his? Or do you think Ramsey?
Brilliant.
Do you think that was one of his?
I think it was Diego Carlos or Conza. They at the front post. I'm pretty sure it was Carlos. He just almost he's a blocker, so that's his job. He took two defenders out, and that allowed Kamara to flick on for Watkins to score it. So and another one to go in the attacking playbook, I think.
Yeah, in fairness, Diego Carlos and Kamara kind of had a beeline for each other with the celebration.
It was Carlos, wasn't it, that held the two defenders off?
Maybe you're right. Maybe it was a McPhee one.
Look, it was. Each player in a set piece, in an attacking set play now has got their roles. One will be to be on the front post, one will be on the back post, another one will be to be a blocker, one will be to pull other defenders out of the way, another one to make a false run, etc., etc. Every player at Villa knows exactly what they've got to do, and that's why they're so creative at attacking set plays.
Yeah, it's a really, really big goal as well, and I guarantee you, back to Ollie Watkins, he wouldn't have really celebrated had that guy not been abusing him all game. He'd been very respectful of Brentford, even though it was a massive goal. I think it would have been a mooted celebration from Ollie Watkins. In fairness, he still does. That Woody lad at Brentford, he's still very close with him. Ollie Watkins he's a good footballer, but he's a good guy as well. Yeah. So something must have been said to him terrible all the way through the game for him to have reacted in that manner. And then the game kind of descended into absolute chaos. Keystone Cops, I think there was about 15 yellow cards. But by the end of the game, now I mean Bailey, he's got a bloody own goal as well. That was
what's he doing?
Absolutely ridiculous. I've learned when I'm watching.
Great save.
I've learned when I'm watching games to I'm quite quiet because if ever I jump up and celebrate, I scare Tiber because obviously he's blind, so he doesn't know. No sudden noise scares him. So I celebrate very quietly when I'm watching football on my own. But when Bailey made that back pass, I could see straight away, oh no, we're in big trouble here with this back pass. Martinez just kind of got a stud on it or a toe on it to divert it wide, and then. I really don't like Malpa. I've never been a massive fan of him. I find him really, really irritating. Martinez makes the most of it, of course. That's Martinez. That's what he does. Malpa bumps into him. Martinez hits the deck. It is what it is. Malpa got booked, but then you do have to question Martinez at the end of the game. Villa are trying to wind down the clock. Don't get involved because ultimately that's ended up with Villa losing Kamara for 3 games. I think the red card on Kamara is fair. You can't do that. There's just the rules you cannot do. He didn't do too much, but you can't do it. You can't raise your hands to someone's throat. So Kamara's now going to be missing for 3 games. But we love him, man. We love everything that he stands for and everything he's done for us. And he is a crazy, crazy character. That's cost us Kamara for 3 games.
Yeah, it has. Look, I think with Morpie, there's a bit of I know there is. There's a long running feud between him and some of the Villa players. You can clearly see there's no love lost whatsoever between him and Konza.
I think when he was at Brighton,
they might have played together at Brentford, but
they would have done.
Yeah, but ever since that they've had a scuffle every single game, and I think there's been a few things going on in the. In the dugout, after games, various in previous meetings. I think it was more so in the Championship and when Jack Grealish was at the club. But look, some of the longer serving players will remember that. So yeah, there's a bit of needle there, shall we say, with Morpie. But Martinez, for me, he's just been unbelievable, isn't he? What a signing! What an unbelievable signing! there aren't many better, really. If you cut it all down, there aren't many better, really, than what Villa have made. He's
It's probably one of the best goalkeeper signings ever. It's probably one of the best goalkeeper signings ever.
Yeah.
And you look at what he's achieved and where he was when he came to Villa and the fee Villa have ended up paying.
Yeah.
You
The
won't
value,
find many better.
everything, the value for money, the impact that he's had on the team, the potential sell-on value, the exposure that he's given Villa in terms of winning the World Cup and things like that. He's the full package. But yeah, you just don't want to lose him for any games. And for me, just felt like he was just a little bit loose with various things, and he just needed to just switch off. I think Emery grabbed him at one point, didn't he? Almost
Emery
as if
won't like that.
No, of course he won't. But by looking at his face, I mean, you could tell by his facial expressions, even though his body language was a bit different. I think his facial expressions showed that he was in control and that he knew that he wasn't going to step over the line. But if you're in the stands and you're seeing that, you can't really see, and you're thinking, what on earth is he doing? But look, games. I like a bit of aggressiveness, in football. We've lost a lot of it now, but look, you need to, and some of the sort of dives. I mean, his dive onto the, into the penalty box. I just thought, what are you doing? You're a massive guy. Just stand up. And then the other one that followed from the Brentford play, was it Morpie? Was it?
It might be again. Yeah. His was worse. A worse reaction to what actually happened.
Yeah,
He flew to the floor.
Just grow up, both of you.
Yeah, but
you're grown men.
Yeah, Kamara for 3 games though ultimately is what's happened now. I look at the fixtures and think it could have been worse. It could have been 3 games that we've just faced, where we'd have been without him. He was so good against Man City. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. Kamara, kind of Burnley and Sheffield United at home, you kind of think Villa should have enough, and even Manchester United away, you'd think, okay, they're not what they used to be as well. So as games that he's missing, it's not the end of the world. But at a time when you are going to inevitably pick up other suspensions and other injuries, it's needless, isn't it?
Yeah, it's silly. He came out after and posted. He said, "Look, great to win. Really sorry about the red card."
He's a placid guy as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be so sure. He's got a bit about him. He's got a bit about him, and. But yeah, look, you can't do it in football, can you, anymore? You can't do that. You're going to get sent off. It was minor, but you just can't.
It's a red card.
It's a red card. There's no question about it. But it's just so minor. If you're in a pub and you do that, for example, it's absolutely nothing, is it? So, but look,
Gregg Evans has done that in a pub many a time over the years.
Yeah, it's usually the other way around. It's usually on me. So Villa will miss him. I don't think it'll be too damaging, as you said. The fixtures that Villa have got coming up should be able to get the job done anyway. But yeah, just not what they needed.
Yeah, carry on. Well, we'll wait for Gregg to finish coughing, and then we've probably done the Brentford game now. But we'll get back into the pod after hearing a little bit more about NordVPN. 1874 is proudly sponsored by NordVPN, so when the Villa are playing and you can't watch it, we want to help you. NordVPN is a secure and private service which works on pretty much any device, including your laptop, mobile and your smart television. So if you want to watch some live content, it allows you to appear like you're in another country. And whilst you're connected, no one else can find out what you're doing, including your internet service provider. Beyond this, the service also has threat protection baked in to protect you from intrusive website ads and malware, which is pretty handy for you. As part of NordVPN supporting 1874, they have given us an exclusive deal of up to 65% off and 4 months for free. This also includes Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. All you've got to do is go to 1874.io/NordVPN and sign up. All the details are also in the description. As always, we're very grateful to anyone that signs up. We know that money is tight, but if you think NordVPN will help you out, it will also help keep the channel running and help us too. Yep, NordVPN definitely helped me out yesterday. So, Gregg, Villa go into the Christmas period now. Friday the 22nd, they're playing Sheffield United. Chance to go top of the league due to Arsenal and Liverpool playing a little bit later, and there's every chance that game could be a draw, in fairness. So Villa face the real possibility of being top at Christmas, which if you'd have said to us last Christmas that in a year's time Villa would be top at Christmas, we would have laughed.
We would, and we're still laughing, aren't we?
Yes.
It's amazing. Look, I tweeted it out last night straight after the Liverpool game. I mean, the first thing that crossed my mind when Liverpool drew
Great
drew
result.
with Man United was that, wow, what an opportunity for Villa this is. Going playing first, having the opportunity to go top of the league, and then potentially still being top at Christmas. Look, it's amazing, and it's not becoming a surprise anymore because Villa have done this over 17 games. Is it this season or 18 so far? 17.
Question, I don't know the answer.
I think it's 17. So we've done it over 17 games this season.
Here's the table.
There we go, 17 games.
17.
Like almost at the halfway stage now. But also, it's the longevity of Villa under Emery. That gives me so much belief that they can continue doing this because they've been doing it for a very long time now.
Yeah, I think people overlook that, don't they? In the wider media, they think that this is just a season thing. But Villa came from nowhere to get 7th. The record in 2023, only Manchester City have got more points than Aston Villa, which is absolutely incredible. And given Emery, it's not like he's gone wild and brought in loads of players, is it? A lot of Villa's best players were already there, and that was a team that was floundering at the bottom of the league.
Yeah, it's incredible. Really, really clever signings. Moreno's come in and helped a little bit. Pau Torres, who
I thought he was brilliant.
Wasn't entirely convinced with at the start of the season. Again, another one that sort of left me eating my words because he's been excellent. Certainly in build-up play. But Diaby, £50 million. It is a lot of money still. Villa have invested significantly. We have to remember that they have invested a lot. Interesting, wasn't it, in the week, the new link up with the Teros, the minority investment, which will just take the financial heat off Edens and Sawiris a little bit in times to come. And look, be interesting to see what happens now and whether Villa move forward with infrastructure improvements. I think they said in the statement, didn't they? It was all about growth and infrastructure investments. I think, look, Sawiris and Edens will be looking at the bigger picture now across V Sports. Yes, Aston Villa are their big, the number one first thought. They're the cornerstone of the operations. But we've got to remember these are two very successful, wealthy guys, and only they will know what they want in the future. So this additional investment will be interesting to see what happens in the future.
I've got to admit, I completely forgotten that happened. I read it at the time when it came out. I've completely forgotten about it because I'm so focused on the games at the moment. And Villa are doing so well. I almost only think about the games and don't think about anything else. Yeah, I've completely forgotten about that until you just alerted me to it, Greg. So yeah, that's an interesting link up that Villa have got there. Anything else we want to cover? Maybe we're coming up to January, Greg. People like to hear if there's any murmurings. You heard any murmurings around Villa and transfers, Greg?
No, to be honest, no. In fact, it was quite the opposite. And I know clubs are very keen to play down sort of, transfer speculation. But it was more a case of Villa are very well set. It might be another relatively quiet January. If there's an opportunity, oh God, I'm sounding like a manager here. If there's an opportunity to invest, then that will improve the squad, then they will. But we discussed in previous weeks, we don't really think they need to do that. But if something comes up, they'll be open to it.
Yeah, I was at Sky last week doing the transfer stuff, and I honestly think it's going to be a really quiet January all round. I don't think anyone's going to be splashing the cash. I think the Everton thing has alerted teams in many a way. And I do honestly just think Villa are pretty well set. Jacob wrote a few weeks ago about maybe a right back for Villa. We're looking at that. They're maybe the only position that they might look to strengthen it. I think if they could move Chambers on, they might look for a more orthodox right back than him because he's looked like he struggled every time he's come into the team this season. But I do take on board that it's hard when you're never playing to just come in and be expected to hit the ground running. That just isn't going to happen. But he's barely had any football, even when we played second string sides. Now Chambers isn't getting a game. So Jacob wrote a few weeks ago about right back being potentially. But if we didn't sign anyone, I've got to say I wouldn't be bothered in one bit. I don't think the teams around Villa at the moment are going to be dramatically strengthening. You might see Man City bring in a player, perhaps. I don't think Arsenal have got the wiggle room to do anything really. And I think Liverpool exactly the same. I think they'll wait till the summer. So I don't think the teams around Villa will be doing massive business either.
No, January is typically turning into quite a quiet transfer window now, isn't it? It's almost like clubs
except for Chelsea.
Yeah, well, is it ever quiet at Chelsea? Clubs are wanting to sort of plan in the summer now and have much longer periods of time with the players. get a full pre-season in them. You speak to, and I'll speak to various directors and other staff at different clubs across the country, and they all sort of say the same thing. It's January's a panic market almost. It's for clubs that are struggling and need something else. If there, might be a case of there are a couple of injuries that clubs need to address. That's a perfect opportunity to then bring a player in on loan or just boost up the squad. But I think the really well-prepared clubs know what they're doing in the summer and they plan for the season ahead, regardless of what might happen. And January is just a case to really, just a time to really top things up if needed. But they don't need to, do they? They've got a very strong squad, and the Europa Conference League games now is a bit of a break, so the fixture list is looking a lot more calmer.
Yeah, grateful for that break as well. Good to just get through that last game. I think we're literally playing at 10 miles per hour at times. It was just a game Villa needed to get through with no one getting hurt, nothing silly happening, and just finish top of the group. And that's exactly what they've done. I think that was always how Villa were going to treat the group stage, because I think, bigger eyes on what was going on in the league for the first half of this season. But it will be interesting, if Villa do get to the latter stages and they're still either hunting for the title, I can't believe I'm saying this, hunting for the title or hunting for Champions League football, which, I think if Villa didn't get Champions League football now in the position they're in at Christmas, there'd be an element of being a little bit upset by it, wouldn't there? So, do you think at a point they may have to prioritise one over the other? A bit like, I'm not saying to the extreme that Martin O'Neill went, and it obviously went extremely wrong because we got knocked out and we didn't finish in the top four. Do you think there might become a time when Villa have to look at that maybe?
Yeah, it's a really not sensitive. It's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because we've seen Villa do this in the past with Martin O'Neill, and that night in Moscow, haunted him really. I think for a long time because fans were furious about it. I remember doing an article for The Athletic where I spoke to almost every player from that team, including a lot of the youngsters that played in Moscow, but also some of the senior players that were left out. And there was very mixed emotions from them. The likes of Gabi and Petrov and some of the more senior ones were saying, well, to be honest, we wanted to be in the Champions League. We wanted to push for the Champions League. So we were with the manager in agreeing that, the league form was the most important. Yeah, he spoke to some of the younger lads, the ones that got the opportunity, and they say, well, we were grateful for playing, etc., etc. But then also some of the supporters that went there, we want to win a trophy. We want to continue.
The supporters were very upset.
And they were very, very angry. So there are lots of different examples from years gone by. I remember Fulham under Roy Hodgson when they got very deep into, they got to the final, didn't they, the Europa League? And they had to start resting players in the Premier League, whereas at the start of that campaign, they were resting players in the Europa League. Now, I think Villa have gone about things in the right way so far because they've been playing strong teams in the Europa Conference League, obviously playing the strongest team in the Premier League. The one result that, annoyed everybody a little bit was losing to Everton in the League Cup, because they tossed that one off almost, didn't they? They put a really weakened team out, and that frustrated a lot of fans at that point because you're very early into the season, didn't really know what was going to happen next. I think Villa had lost the first game at that point in the Conference League, hadn't they? And it was kind of like, well, what's happening here? Are we
injuries?
Are we throwing things away, aimlessly here? But I wanted to ask you this because I was going to say, would you prefer to win the Europa Conference League? Because you always go on to me about, I just desperately want to see a cup win or a win in my lifetime, or for Villa to qualify in the Champions League.
I sound so fickle because I have said that. I've said it for years. Every time I go on TalkSport and Villa are doing well, they ask me about what I want, and I always say, trophy. We haven't won anything since 1996. But right now, if you offered me a choice between the Conference League and Champions League football for next season, being completely honest, and I almost don't like myself for saying it, I would take the Champions League, and there's a couple of reasons. I just think what qualifying for the Champions League does for you as a club outweighs what winning the Conference League does for you as a club. I'm in an ideal world, but we'll get both. The second aspect of that is, I'm not disrespecting the Conference League. If Villa get to a Conference League final, there's only about 6,000 Villa fans that are actually going to get there. It's not like when you go to Wembley and you're all there and you all get to enjoy it and you all get to celebrate it. It will just be those unbelievable people, and there's so many amazing people that follow Villa everywhere. It will be just them there, and they deserve to be there. I'm not knocking that.
Do you not think? Well, surely Villa fans will turn out in the droves over to Athens, and
Yeah, of course. Look,
and they will
everyone's
just go
got a
over
hotel
there,
already.
and
Yeah, of
not
course.
everyone will go to the game. And I think for that core group that go to every away game anyway, and there are lots. There are a fair few of them on my connecting flight. I covered Liverpool in Brussels this week, and there was a fair few flying out to Bosnia on the connecting flight that I got on from Birmingham. It'd be an amazing thing for those who have gone to every game and then go on and win the final. But as you say, it's a very small amount. So yeah, I mean, looking at it right now, Villa are in a title challenge.
That's the other thing. Teams that are in that tournament usually are not in the title race.
No.
Are
So
not gunning for top four.
they're in the title race. So like, for me, that would have to be the priority right now. I think, yes, Villa need to go and win a cup at some point. The Europa Conference League has got that sort of element of it's a bit of a Mickey Mouse competition still, but you still have to finish in the top 7 in the Premier League to get there. So the thing with Emery, you look back throughout his career and he's got to a lot of finals and he's lost a fair few. If you think of the Arsenal experience, he got right, he got to the final and it all fell apart for him at the very end of the season, didn't it? They just didn't qualify. Arsenal just missed out on the Champions League, I think finished 5th. They lost in the Europa League final. They lost in the FA Cup final or League Cup final, I think.
I think they lost the FA Cup final. I think
The FA
I could
Cup
be
final.
wrong. I could be
So,
wrong.
Emery's gone through these bruising experiences in England where everything's been looking all right, got to the end of the season, and it's all gone flat. So, just needs to be a tiny, tiny reality check with Villa, at this moment. Yeah, it's really, really exciting, but there's so much hard work still to be done to get actually get the job done. So, I think I agree with you. 1, they're in the title race. 2, it will be a disappointment if they don't finish in the Champions League positions now. But 3, a cup win would be amazing for the fans.
Yeah, it's just like I say, I think about what it would do for the club financially. Gives you more wiggle room to bring in great players and then maybe be consistent, title challengers consistently, winning cups and consistently finishing around the top 4. I think that's absolutely massive. But I also think about the manager and I think about these wonderful, excellent players that are playing for us at the moment. I think if you asked them, and I haven't asked any of them, they want to be playing Champions League football more so than winning the Europa Conference League and playing Europa League football. I mean, we might get both. Well, there's a world where Villa get both. Isn't there?
And look, it's not greedy to want both, and it's not unrealistic to expect both because Villa are very well positioned at this moment in time to go and do both. I'd back them to go and win the Europa Conference League if they continue playing strong teams, strong starting lineups. And it's very hard to see how the form drops off that they don't finish in the top 4 as well now because there's almost a buffer, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
It's looking quite nice.
You'd have expected Manchester United to be somewhere around the top 4, wouldn't you? Villa have got 10 points on them. Chelsea are absolutely miles off it. Villa are ahead of Man City. I still think Man City will win the league, but Villa are ahead of Man City. At the moment, we've just got to do everything we can now to keep this pace so that if ever there is a drop off and they lose a couple of games, you're not going to fall down too much because you've just created this. But for Villa, have got the most momentum in the league at the moment. It feels like with those last 3 wins, there's no more form team in the Premier League than Villa. No, I don't think, and when you take into account the home form as well.
Yeah, they've got the best home form now in Europe, haven't they? The title race is wide open at this point. Liverpool smashed Villa. Villa beat Arsenal. Arsenal beat Man City. Villa beat Man City. All 3 teams are still scared of Man City, which means that those 4 are all going for the title. And my voice is going, so this has got to end soon, I think.
We have to wrap it up. So I'm presuming no press box archive.
Oh,
Well, Gregg Evans,
Don't ask
you
for this
could
with my voice.
you could tell you could tell an absolutely wonderful story. Now I know you won't because of what we discussed earlier about Moscow. You could tell one of my favourite stories that I have ever been told by anyone, but I know you're not going to do it. But that is genuinely one of my favourite stories that I've ever been told.
We'll save
by
that for the
anyone.
book.
Oh my God, what a story, Greg! That is one of my favourite days of my life when you told me that story. Absolutely brilliant, but we won't tell it on this podcast. Gregg Evans' autobiography will reveal all. Right then, thank you ever so much for joining me, Greg, and thanks to everyone that will go on and listen and watch this podcast. We really, really appreciate it. Obviously, we're both absolutely buoyant with how Villa are doing at the moment. Be back with a match preview show probably on Wednesday or Thursday ahead of Villa against Sheffield United with myself and Dave Reed. And disclaimer, Villa will win on Friday. I mean, they win at home anyway, but I can't go because I'm double booked because I didn't think for the life of me Aston Villa v Sheffield United would be on a Friday night. But of course, it got moved. So I'm not going to be there, which almost always guarantees Villa win. First game I've missed this season at Villa Park. So that's disappointing, but I'm hoping Villa will get the 3 points. So yeah, match preview, and then Greg and I will probably appear at some point as well to do a show after that. So last time might be the last time we do one before Christmas, potentially, Greg. I know you'll be busy over Christmas as well. So chance to wish the viewers and
for some other stuff.
Will we do a Sheffield United? Will we do a pod after Sheffield United at some point? I can't remember when you said you were unavailable.
Yeah, I'm free.
We
can jump on Christmas Day if you like. No problem.
Excellent. Yeah, I'll be sure to get up on Christmas morning and do a live with you, Greg. That would be absolutely wonderful. So yeah, thanks for all the support you're giving the channel. And yeah, such a great 3 points. Yes, I'm still absolutely buzzing with what Villa are doing at the moment. Watch out for those shows. Subscribe to the channel with your post notifications on. Let us know what you think with regards to the Conference League and the Premier League. Let us know in the comments, and have a great week, Aston Villa fans. Up the Villa.